Okay, I had to start the recording. Good evening, everybody. On behalf of Ellen and myself and Synnove. So, yeah, those of you who actually read the description of this interview and who watched our webinar on Thursday, you know that Ellen and I, we actually created this company based on a download. And the download was that I was going to create a game, and then I tried to figure it out with my head, and I couldn't, I got stuck. And the only way that I could actually come up with any innovative ideas was to just basically receive what was, you know, was like around me. It was not like I could make it up. It was just given to me and I had to work with it. And so at one point, the download came to work with Ellen. And that was basically, I didn't even know her that well. I just thought, well, she seems like a really cool person. And when I started working with Ellen, we found out that we were super aligned. We were very complementary. We made decisions in the same manner. We were very similar, but also, you know, we complemented each other. So what I was good at, she was good in other things. And so we could basically feel like a whole. But what's more important is that we were super aligned in values. And that was quite a surprise because normally as a headhunter, I work as a headhunter in the corporate world. You know, you can imagine that I actually will look at CVs, I will interview people, I do reference checks. So I'm very, what I would call based on track records and evidence and what I would call real, what is it? I'm very, fact-based in terms of how I choose to work with people, but with Ellen, it was completely based on intuition, and she had the same thing. And so ever since then, we found out that we could actually, we were given the best ideas when we weren't trying to think of it. These ideas would just come to us. And this is, in the last webinar, we explained how we then found out that a lot of things were actually given to us. Whatever we thought was, maybe I thought of this myself, actually we were thinking of the same thing. And it was happening so often that we actually thought this is not based on coincidence, and it's also not like we know each other that well. It's not like we're even in the same age group. There's quite a big age gap between me and Ellen. I've had a complete different life than Ellen, and still we're like picking up the same information and the same guidance. So we really felt like there is something guiding us. And so for this game that we are now developing, that was also based on actually the chaos that was happening around us. And we actually had a complete different plan for the appreciation game. But then when this crisis happened, we both felt we have to basically receive another download, because what we have in what we have in mind is not what the world needs right now. The world needs something else. And for a few days, I can tell you that I really didn't know where we were going. I just thought I surrender, because whenever I try to think about it with my head, it's not going to go well. And I literally can't even think from my head because it hurts my head. And so I said to Ellen, you know, something else is needed. Let me wait until we know what it is. And then I received the word best case scenario, but then I also received creating from the best case scenario. And I said it to Ellen, and she was like, oh, that feels good. But I have to be honest, I didn't know much about the best case scenario. It's just something that I heard Michael Bernard Beckwith mention, and I loved it. I knew that I was going to work with that concept. But me being a super geeky person that studies, you know, those of you know that I've been reading and studying books, like devouring books for years. I've worked with every great teacher, like every great mentor out there. I probably have been investing in working with them. I've been to a lot of retreats, lots of workshops. I'm a real student, like, but the best case scenario, I had no clue what we were working with, but I felt like, no, we have to work with that. And so on the day that we decided that that is the theme that we're going to work with, and we both trusted this theme, you know, Ellen and I just trust that we are guided. Actually, Synnove came to us through a synchronicity. And the synchronicity was that we're testing our appreciation game app. And for whatever reason, we needed to test the appreciation game app with people who didn't have a Gmail account. And I sent it to a group of people that we met at the Dr. Joe retreat last year, called the Flamingos, and she was one of the 70 flamingos that actually responded. Synnove responded. And then for whatever crazy reason, Synnove decided to call me when she was testing the app. And I can tell you, hardly anybody ever calls me except my mom and my boyfriend and Alan. And other people just don't call me because I'm not going to pick up the phone, because I'm like, if you don't have an appointment, I'm not even going to pick up the phone. So we just basically, I live in an age of voice messages, and, you know, we have an appointment to go on Zoom. I don't have random calls, but Synnove randomly called me, and I thought I better pick this up because it's about the app. And then we just started talking about the crisis and everything. And I told her about this new game that we were developing based on the download. And then Synnove, out of the blue, said, well, actually, I've been working with the best case scenario for years with my future life progression. And then, you know, you'll notice it from Synnove. She didn't say it from like excitement. It was like a matter of fact, the way that she said it. It was like, oh, this is just like old news to me. You know, I've been working with this concept for years. And then she continued and she said, it's very interesting because when you see these things happen in like this progression therapy, they then unfold in reality. And I was like, how is it possible that I couldn't think of anything to work with? And on the day that we decide this is the theme that we're going to work with, somebody who is working on this concept contacts me. And this is, of course, those of you who are Dr. Joe students, you know that you are the vortex. And I have so much proof that I am definitely the vortex. And when we say the vortex, we don't, you know, this is really where you are a magnet to things that are going to propel you on the next stage of evolution or towards the best case scenario manifestation. And so when I say I am the vortex, it is based on the, you know, listening to Dr. Joe for years and thinking, I hope he's right. And then seeing other people being the vortex and thinking, hey, how can I become the vortex? And I actually now have so much evidence that I am the vortex. We are the vortex. And so to me, it's very important that we outline how Synnove came into our lives, because this best case scenario concept is not a well-known one. I mean, there are no books written about it, you know? So this is the reason why we were so intrigued by this, A, the synchronicity, and B, the download that we had to work with this. And so I think the outline would be, we are working with quantum potentials. You know, there's even like, you know, many of us are reading about it. We're doing meditations on it, with walking meditations with Dr. Joe, tuning into new potentials with Dr. Joe, but definitely the future life progression, but also Brian Weiss. They work with quantum potential. They work with, you know, Brian Weiss is the famous therapist who once upon a time did past life regression, and he actually really found out through a lot of synchronicity that a lot of patients could remember past lives, and there was a lot of synchronicity with his own life and his clients even. And later on, he basically decided then to do future life progression or regression, whatever you want to call it. But future life progression is something that was that I found out about through a woman called Anne Giersch when I was living in London. And it really intrigued me because I'm an Aquarian, so I love the future. And I'm the type of person that's also read the books of Edgar Cayce about the future, you know, all his downloads about the future, about, you know, us 200, 300 years from now. So, but what about our lives? What can we do with the quantum potentials in our lives? To me, it's not, I don't want to make it a theoretical concept. If there are case studies out there from people who are working with it, I want to know about it. And that's why Ellen and I wanted to talk to Synnove. Synnove, would you, sorry, Ellen, would you like to add maybe what is it for you that made this so exciting?
Well, for me, it was the situation where we're in right now, and everyone, what we're experiencing, and the fact that I noticed myself shifting into a worst case scenario at times, and then finding it difficult to get out. So then best case scenarios seemed like the perfect theme, because I think a lot of people are feeling this right now.
Yes, yes. And so I think, you know, we are bombarded with the worst case scenarios. And of course, we are human. We fear for the lives of the people we love. We fear for our livelihoods. And so I think this download that we got, right, Ellen, from best case scenario, we were like, wow, that sounds very much out of our comfort zone, but we trusted it. And then the synchronicity happened with Synnove. So, you know, so this is really about us getting into the unknown and just following the crumbs of synchronicity, you know. And so Synnove, we want to ask you to actually maybe share a little bit about your own skepticism. Because in our interview in Thursday, she actually said that when she was training, she was even skeptical because she was hearing from the teacher, she was hearing from the other students, and she was like, you know, none of us are going to believe stuff until we actually experience it. But what we also want to know, Synnove, is how did you cross the border from actually being a skeptic to actually seeing these things unfold, maybe with some case studies, and then how did it enhance your understanding of what is the future, what is time, what are we creating things, or are there parallel realities, are we collapsing time? I don't know, you know, you understand all the theoretical things that we're dealing with Dr. Joe, and especially as very, you know, we're very committed students. So maybe please, especially in these times when so many things are happening around us, how are you making sense of future line progression, but also definitely a best case scenario outcome?
Yeah, a lot of questions. I want to say that first I want to say thank you for inviting me. But I also want to say that I think most of us are actually being programmed to have the worst case scenarios first, because that is how we are taught from our parents to think, and they never grew up being able to even be allowed to think about the best case scenario at all. So I think that's somewhat a part of why we haven't seen so much of future progression, and more of regression and hypnotherapy going backwards in time. And a lot of the psychology has also been about going back to repair and not so much going forward, looking for answers, resolving, and also look at the best case scenarios at all, because we haven't been programmed for that at all from before. For me, I was a skeptic, because I, working with traumas from the past, I knew that we always did like more, or I would go learn hypnotherapy and regression, because I wanted to learn how to be safer and go back, blah blah blah, because that was what we were doing. We're talking about how to resolve in when going back. But also I saw that a lot of people were in such despair or in so much stress that they also need some hopes for the future as well. And when I did my hypnotherapy training, I heard about some people going forward, but I didn't know anything about it. So we were a few people starting to look it up in some way, and some people were like really alternative, more looking for the UFO stuff, but that was not me at all. But then I came over the book and Angers, as you mentioned, and she actually came here in our area to do a training, and I just jumped on it because I really wanted to learn something about it and to know something. I was really curious about how how that would work as I've been learning the hypnotherapy and the regression. But also when I was doing my regression training, I was also asking, like, how come if we can time travel backwards and even past this life, how can it not be possible to go forward and going into the future? But when I asked the teacher that I had in the hypnotherapy, I don't think that he believed so much in going into the future. And I do know there is a lot of people kind of skeptical to this. But also we have a lot of studies, or not studies, but we have a lot of people that have been doing this and have been having amazing results, resolving things and finding solutions. And for me, when I did my training, I went to the future, but then, for me, I'm skeptical, so I didn't buy it until because you really have to experience it. And for me, I also had to experience that the things that I experienced came true. So yeah, you have to ask me some of the questions again, Angelique or Ellen.
What was the pivotal point where you went from skeptic to maybe being more open to actually knowing that these things, do you have a personal example, maybe with a client, or maybe something you saw yourself where you thought, So we're talking not about something like, you're gonna get married or something, maybe something more unusual, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. We know that that some people have been going to just not to the best case scenario future, but just going towards the future, and have been seeing, for example, things how we see the world today. And we also have people going to the future with this therapy, traveling to the future, and just to find out how their businesses work, and for them to because we normally go 3, 5, 10 years ahead, and some people would go 3 years ahead because they are a fresh business owner and they want to know how the business is going in 3 or 5 years time. And some of them will find it. Some of them find, it's okay with the first years, and then something happens, and then you just dig into it, and then you try to find out what is happening. Some people want to do an FLP just for seeing not how their business is going, but how what is the word? But the area of their business, not their personal business, but the area of the business.
The industry.
The industry is going, to see how it shifts, for example, to come up with solutions for them to be better able to cope with different times, or to see what is happening. So we know some people have been doing that. Some of the people that have been projecting or doing the FLP now, that have been seeing some of these issues, but they didn't know it would be Corona until Corona came up. But then they still have in some way prepared for this, because they did an FLP and they knew something would happen and the times would change.
Do you know these people personally, or are they some of your clients, or are they like?
No, I just asked some of my co-workers that also do the FLPs, because I haven't done FLPs so much towards that
economic trends or big changes in society.
Because most of my clients have been, but I also see that the clients that I've been having, they want to look, maybe first they also want to look at one area, maybe first of a personal issue, maybe because they want evidence for it to work. So if that works, then they are more open of maybe looking into other areas of their life, of their business, and then they to time travel to do for their businesses, for example, or the industry, to find solutions. But for me, since I haven't, for the time that I have been doing the FLPs, I haven't seen, I haven't had the results of my clients so much coming back with the big results yet.
Mm-hmm. But for yourself, what was the most convincing, where you sort of had enough evidence that you thought, no, I'm not making this up? Like, you know, me and Ellen have had quite a few things.
Yeah.
And that I thought, well, this is too freaky. This is just like outside of what we would say is statistical chance, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So were there things that you thought, well, this is actually so outside of my usual expectation range, this is,
yeah,
I probably somehow either created, projected, or saw something that was going to be a specific timeline, or I don't know.
When in one part of when I was doing the training, and I struggled quite a lot also in my business. So for myself, I wanted to have, I did an FLP just to see where my business was going, and to in some way find what is the future holding for me, and how can I resolve, how can I find something, how can I find out what the future holds for me, and is it possible for me to do something about whatever the future holds, whatever's in there. So for me, because I was struggling so much with, I didn't know what to do, whether I would just go back to being regular employed, or if I would do my own startup and just stay by myself, and just be self-employed, and finding myself work of different areas of work. And this was also when we had in Norway the big financial crisis. So when I did this FLP, and for me, it was quite obvious that I was supposed to work by myself, and also inside me, I would think, this is crazy. It's crazy going by yourself at the moment. It's so much safer just following the mainstream. Just be a regular employee for safety, for economics, everything, for the family. But when I did the FLP, it was so obvious that because I did alternative, or I did an FLP, and I would shift like one reality and shift to an alternative reality, and then another alternative reality. So I had like 3 options of 3 different realities in my future in 3 years time. So I went seeing myself as an employed, miserable, and I didn't know what kind of job it would be. I just saw myself sitting there, and I could somewhat see what kind of business, but I didn't have that job at that moment. But then I also saw myself, and then I did an alternative reality in the same FLP, and then I would go to a different phase where I would see, okay, so if I just continue what I'm doing at the moment, just not knowing what will happen then, And it was like a really confusing time where I was just juggling between doing a little bit of regular employee, being a regular employee, and then trying to do my own business, like at the same time. And then I wanted to also look at a third reality where I was just being self-employed, and how that could be if I started doing it now. And then I could see that my self-employed was definitely the best reality. And even though I was like really, even then I was skeptical about like, is it true, or is it just what I want that I'm like projecting into the future, into this FLP or whatever. But still, I feel that the answers that was giving when doing the FLPs was so convincing and so strong that like I couldn't just not doing it, or just not listening to it. So I decided to go with that, and most people would tell me that it would be crazy because of the financial crisis, and nobody like in here in Norway we had a lot what we call the Jante law, where like everybody says, you know, what do you have, what are you, how can you be so special, like nobody wants to buy, what are you selling, like nobody will buy your product, like you're not that special, blah blah blah. So also that made me really unsure, like if I could actually do it. But when I did my FLP, it was quite clear that I would make it and everything would resolve. And so when I envisioned myself in this FLP, I did see some of my clients, I did see my office and stuff. So, and I immediately, when I came out of the FLP, I just went to my notes and I just wrote it all down. And I did like a sketch of what I had envisioned my office, for example. And I decided to at least check out what my options to just start for myself and be a self-employed. And I did, and everything went so smoothly, more like over more than I imagined. And you know, when I started the work, I when I had when I got hired as a self-employed, the first thing I noticed was that when I was looking out the window, I had somewhat, or very close to what I already envisioned in my FLP, and that was my first like, oh, this is kind of strange stuff.
How many years later was that?
That was not so many years later. That was only, I think only 2 or 3 months later on that I had after I started for myself, or I got self-employed and out of the regular.
I really like that, the 3 different choices. That's also interesting for this time, because I think a lot of people are feeling similar feelings, like my industry is gone, so what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Should I do this or should I do this?
Yeah.
That's super appealing to do an FLP for, I think.
Yeah, and some people will just go in to see how does my industry look like, and there was this guy, and he went towards because he wanted to see how does my industry look like, and how is my business 5 years ahead. And he found out, okay, 5 years ahead, I'm good, like everything is just like, it's not, because he didn't do like a best case scenario, but he was just looking towards the future. And he went 5 years ahead, and he was like, okay, I'm fine. And then they did 10 years time, and then there was no business there anymore. And he was like, so, and then we just like start digging into this. What is this? How come we had like this, well, like good business 5 years ahead, and then no business at 10 years? Like, what happened? And then he could just actually see that his, like by 7 year, so in between of the 5 and the 10 year, the market just dried up. So actually the market where he had his product just dried up about 7 years ahead. So what he did with his FLP, he wrote down what, and he asked like, what can I do with this, blah, blah, blah. And then he went back, and then he just created a different product, knowing that the market that he was already in would dry up. And he has been referring back that his business actually, or the market that he was in, did dry up. Starting about 6 year and 7 year was gone. His market was just gone. So he would be out of business with approximately 7 year, as he saw in the future life progression section.
Can you tell us which industry this was in? I mean, because, you know, like if you would tell me that certain banking branches, you know, financial services, some derivatives or some of the exotic instruments, that these people would lose their jobs, and that, you know, like, you know, nobody would have believed you, right? Like so many years ago. And if you would have told us anybody about the coronavirus, unless you're psychic and you saw, for instance, 9/11 happen in your dream, you know, because these people exist, I mean, you would not have, like, you would just think, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm going to put so much money in, let's say, hotels and airplanes and, you know, and hospitality. And right now it's like, wow, what's going to happen? What do you know which industry this person was in? Like,
no, I don't, because that is not a person that I have been working with. Because it's, as I was telling, he did this, it's now 10 years ago. He did his first and this was one of his first FLPs. So, and but he said that his market, so I know that if you want to look at referrals, there is a lot of referrals about, like, or knowing more about different people that have done their future life progressions. You can find them in YouTube, for example, where they are telling about their experiences. So what I see is that a lot of the FLP facilitators, or if I call them facilitators, they do the future life progression, so we time travel forward. But I don't know too many that would necessarily go to the best case scenario still.
what would you say is the difference between, you know, because we talked about this, the best case scenario and just travel forward in the future? Because as you could see, like, even in Brian Weiss, I think his book, what I remember from reading his book, because I was very impressed by the way he wrote with integrity about his past life regression, which was not even his choice. It was like one of his clients started talking to him about his dead son, and his dead father came to him through a client, and that client didn't know anything about his father and his dead son. And so I followed him, how he really had a lot of, you know, he had to doubt whether this was real or not, and whether him with his academics could even trust these messages coming from the other side. And so many years later, when he wrote a book about not just going to the past and going to the other realms or talking to the angels, but actually knowing that we also have future lives, and these future lives are formed as we're making decisions now.
Yeah.
I think my question is, like, the best case scenario, even if they do exist, what does it depend upon? What do we have to do to actually be able to allow it in, align with it, see it? I can't imagine. Let's say imagine a year ago I was going to let's say to Dr. Joe, when I paid, I don't know, thousands of pounds to be with all these teachers, and I would still be in the mindset that I was a victim. Like, I would still like blame my ex-boyfriend, blame my parents, blame the economy. I mean, would I be able to see the best case scenario, or even be able to tune into that, even with my victim mindset?
Yeah.
Really?
I think most people, because you can only tune into the best potential from where you're at in that exact moment.
So let's say I didn't evolve. I despite all my knowledge, I'm still insisting that I'm a victim. I would still tune in. I could still tune into the best case scenario.
Yeah. What could be perceived as the best future life for you? Yeah. So maybe it's because I think we were talking about it earlier, or I think that what the future life progression does, as in hypnotherapy, that you can actually pass the guards, your inner critic. So therefore you can access also what comes from the soul, or whatever I'm supposed to call it.
So not from the personality.
No, not from the personality.
Even if my personality says I'm not worthy,
yeah,
there are no good people out there, I'm just going to be tormented all the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I could still, through a future life progression, be shocked by even my transformation, or how different I am.
Yeah.
Then my question is, so you're in the regression and you see your past life or your best life, and then but you're in that small self and you still have all these victimization issues. Like, how do you get from there to there? You need to do the work, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, for what I think is also different, because we know that when the solutions come from within, then we are more willing to do the work in opposite that somebody else tell. Like if I were in the victimhood and I would go to whatever a therapist, and he would tell me, so no, we have to do this, blah, 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 blah. And then I would go home and I would sabotage it, and it wouldn't work. And then I would say, he said, so he's a bad therapist or whatever, because you're not responsible. But when you are doing the future life progression, and you are yourself in that future, in that moment, experiencing yourself from that moment, and the answers that you are getting is not from people outside of yourself, it's coming from within.
It's not even your personality. It's not even your personality. It might be your best future self talking to you. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Already in you. Yeah. That leads me also to the question that Angelique was saying earlier about all the timelines. Like, what's up with that? So yeah, we can talk about that.
I think some people just want to go into the future for curiosity, and they don't have the need, or they might not. Also, I think of course it depends. I think everything also depends on who is facilitating the process and who is the client, and if they are willing and able and ready to actually do the work, to actually even go to the future at all, to just unlock and see what the future can hold.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I always set the intention that we are always looking at like good options. But for some people have been saying, and I have experienced, some people told me, because we didn't do a best case scenario, but we did a regular FLP. And when we were doing the session, she said, you know, and she got advice that she had to do something, and when she saw herself, she didn't like what she was seeing, you know. And this was a health issue. So what she took back from her FLP was that she needed to do something about her health, and how that, and then we could do a different reality and see, okay, so if you are coming back and you're doing whatever this reality tells to do, because you will have big health issues unless, and you come back and you do those, what will happen then? And then she could see a whole different other future unfold. But also she said, you know, I didn't like what I was, and she said, when we were doing the FLP, she said, I don't like what I'm seeing. And you told me, Synnove, that we would have like a good outcome out of this. And I said, sometimes the good outcome is not what we predict a good outcome to be. Sometimes the good outcome, or the perfect outcome, is to have messages brought to us by our, even though it's from the future self, telling us, you know, you need to do something, or you will die, or whatever, because it doesn't matter if the doctor is telling you that tomorrow because you don't want to do it. But if you can see yourself, or you can experience being yourself 5 or 10 years ahead, and experience how bad your health are, you are going to do something about it actually when you're coming back.
So
and
it's
then
sometimes the best case scenario that you don't like could be a wake-up call.
Sometimes it could be a wake-up call, but for me, when I do the best case scenario, then I would always build upon what is the absolutely best case scenarios from that area that the client is choosing, and then we always, or I at least always ask them to ask for advice, for example, to what are the first steps going forward when coming back, and the next step, and we do like a learning process out of it, so you can track the process going forward.
So you can attract the process, or are you talking about, so you can attract the solutions or the insights, the people?
Yes, because when we're doing the FLP, I think we are getting the solutions. We ask for the solutions. And in the best case scenario, I always ask for the solutions. What is the best solution? How do I get here from where I am at this moment? So the example you were using about, you know, what if I would to be a victim, and in all this, and having this reality now in 2020, and then do an FLP, how could it be possible to tune into but it's just because it is actually the true potential of who the essence of you are. It's way past and beyond the you being a victim, because that you can actually work through. So it's just like beyond everything,
beyond even my identity, beyond
and beyond who you know you are.
Yeah. That's why that would explain the woman that was in her 50s, who was always single, and that couldn't even believe that she was going to get married, and within a week she met the man. Within a month they were like going steady.
Yeah.
So
I would like to try this with one FLP for living a life in victimization, another one living a life in appreciation, and see what.
That would be so funny. Oh. So this is my next question. Do we really need FLP, or couldn't we just like fantasize? Like, do we have the wisdom to actually tune into these future timelines and just download them? Or do you think actually we're so biased, or we're so like in our little program that it's actually you need like a facilitator to actually guide you so that you don't get lost in your own little fantasy or your own programming of how unworthy you are or how horrible the economy is or whatever.
I definitely think that some people are able to actually tune into the potential to the future life, to the best, even the best future life. For me, I always recommend going to an FLP practitioner or facilitator or whatever you call it. And I myself always use a different therapist or facilitator to facilitate my process.
Yes.
And that is to ensure it's not because I've done it so many times, so I definitely know how to do it myself. But by going, even with me going to a different coach or a different facilitator that can facilitate the process, it in some way ensures me that I am actually not staying in my program, that I am actually going past and beyond my limits of who I think I am. And I think we were talking about it also earlier, that, you know, when we can do vision boards and put up visions, and the visions, the pictures that we are putting in our vision board are often picture of what we imagine with our eyes that we want to see, or that we want to create, or we want for the
beach
future.
body.
Yes, the beach body or the house or the car. So we put up these fancy, and we find pictures to match somewhat whatever we want. But I think, and I think Dr. Joe also talks about it, because he says something about, you know, the non-attachment, you know, so you can tune into the potential, but then you have to do the work. And he says you have to do the work.
Vibrational match.
Yes, you have to do the work. But if you then put it on in pictures, like the beach body, for example, everywhere you go, then you are actually, for me, I believe that then you're actually operating out of lack, and you're really attached to the outcome, because you're creating like an attachment to the outcome, because you see it everywhere, because that you want it so much that you can't release it. So to actually create, you have to also release it, so you can go see it or find it, and you have to do the work, and you have to release it. You have to have the non-attachment. Yes, you have to surrender that it will be true, that you don't have to, like,
you don't need it to be happy.
Yeah, but you still have to do the work, but then the body will do the work.
It's
by
more
itself.
about who you become, because you think that thing will make you happy, but actually it's who you become that can actually just think that whatever you want is going to come in. It's just normal. It's not like extraordinary anymore, and that is the work. This is why I think in the beginning, the meditations of Dr. Joe, the dimensionalization meditations, where we are asked to basically walk into the future in a meditation. We walk into, let's say, the house or the job, or, you know, the estate that we own or whatever. He asks us to actually do two dimensionalizations. One is like a light one, where we don't have a lot of attachment. And the second one, he says, and now your second intention, which he always explains, the light one is more likely to manifest because you're not attached to it, because it's playful. The second one, we just have a lot of programs, and we have a lot of resistance, or maybe a lot of disbelief, or a lot of attachment to it. I definitely believe that the vision board and mind movie stuff, you know, if we give it too much importance, as they would explain it in reality transurfing, you know, you basically create a balance where you don't have it, you know. So that's reality transurfing theory. And I've seen it so often in my life that when I want something and I come from lack, it completely evades me. Like, I wanted to move to London. I really wanted to move to London. And as long as I was like writing down, I'm so grateful I'm in London, it wasn't happening. And then when I thought it's not going to happen because I was so impatient, and I started deciding I'm going to be happy living in Holland. I got like 4 job offers, right, for London, because I decided I'm going to be happy in Holland, even if I never leave Holland, you know? And then because I was letting it go, it could come into my life, because I think this vibrational match of havingness and not having is very important. So maybe this will bring us to the next question. Have you seen instances maybe of yourself, or maybe anecdotes that you know from other peers, where people how they have to actually integrate this being congruent with the best case scenario future? I can imagine that if, let's say, you are experiencing the future present moment, and you're seeing something amazing of your company or your industry or your life, but you're not a vibrational match to it. You're like still in doubt and fear and worry, and you're like, your identity is still mirrored by your achievements right now. How would you, as a facilitator, or the people that you know are your peers, how would they help these clients integrate these things? Because I know in our interview on Thursday, you actually said that some people try to control it and they want to do another future life progression, and you actually say no to it. So what is it that you do advise them to do, or how do you work with them in terms of integration? Because this is where we think the work of the appreciation game is very, very much about the alignment skills, which is about detachment and surrender, but also living in the present moment and still tuning into the best case scenario future. But it's much more about living the best moment, each moment, in alignment with your highest self, rather than coming from lack, trying to live in a future.
I always, when I can only talk for myself, but when I facilitate the process of the FLPs, I always, for me, it's crucial that the answers comes from within, because in some way that is a really big key for them to bring back. And when they, when we're doing like a lot of people know is familiar with the inner child therapy, like the inner child therapy, where you go and you visit your inner child and you give it the support as an adult, as you become. It's somewhat the same, and that heals the child. But in the FLP, we are like the child, and then we are picking the advice and the knowledge from our future self. And that is how things get easier to integrate. And I always ask also, what is the lesson? What is the lessons needed to learn to go from here to do the first step, to do the next step, to do the third step? Because there are definitely reasons, because there are reasons why they haven't achieved the next level, even though they might even have been struggling or actually been working quite hard for it, but they haven't. It doesn't mean that they have been doing what was right for them to do. So I think, and the future self, and even you don't have to even look like in the long future self to know what is best for you, because you do know, because we are projecting it all the time. And that is also how we pick, even with the intuition, maybe we tend to pick up what is the best for us.
Could you give us an example of maybe a client that you worked with in a business where, things were really so unclear, and, maybe similar to what's going on right now, where they came to you or maybe to one of your peers, and where future life progression really helped them, make the next best decision, even though it looked very bleak all around them?
Yeah, I had quite a few FLPs somewhat similar as the one I told with myself, when we, especially in crisis where we don't, and we tend to get unsure of what is the right next step to do, or where I'm going next, or what is the right thing to do for me, for my family, like, and you tend to get confused because you want to do what is right, and maybe the society and people around you tell you something, and your inner self, and your inner self tells you, no, it's time to do something different, this is your opportunity, or whatever. Then I think it's always like a good time to do an FLP, because then you can tune into your potential, and you can also tune into the to the actual future, to see what the future unfolds from where you're at, and if you're continuing doing what you're doing in the exact moment. So I had people doing what I did, like we did an FLP, and we just see if I and people that maybe were not so happy about their jobs, or their in the business they were staying in, or the business that they were doing, the business partners they were working with, and just do an FLP, and then see, okay, if I continue working with these partners, what will happen in the future? And then they just tune in and go to the future, and then they will see what happens. And then you can, from there, if you don't like what the future holds, then you go back, and then you do a second reality, like I told, and then you ask, okay, so if I change, and then of course for me, I would always ask, like, if you don't like the first reality, the first future, like, what happened? How come this happened from the moment where you're at, like 2020 and 2030, for example? Like, what happened? Where did things mess up? Like, how can we learn? How can you learn from this? What is your future self telling you? And then because I think it's also about learning the lessons and taking the lessons and doing the work with the lessons. And then you create a different reality. Okay, so if you do that, what happens then? And how can you move forward? And how can actually things unfold if you go back and you do a different, or if you decide, okay, I will leave this business now and move into another business. What will the future hold then? Just based on different, what you decide.
Do we
Even
have
if you want to come.
Do we have enough evidence from, also, the length of time that this type of therapy exists for it to actually say, the empirical evidence is that, let's say 50% or 75% or maybe even 30% of what we see as a potential actually then comes about? Or is it actually 100% because we tend to make things, we tend to create self-fulfilling prophecies? Or maybe there's another theory, which is everything is fixed, we're very deterministic, you don't even have free will. So I actually really believe that we do have free will, and that there is a potential for best case scenario, but there's definitely a potential for us not allowing it in because we are too stuck. Are there any statistical, are there people there that are trying to really create, like, I don't know, more scientific, anecdotal research about the phenomena of the future life progression therapy?
I'm actually not sure. I know that Anne is doing a lot of work at the moment, also tuning into the business world.
Because of what's going on?
She actually already did it. And I know, because sometimes we have this group for FLP practitioners, that sometimes when we're doing an FLP to tune into, for example, future, to sometimes sometimes I get a little bit shocked of what I am experiencing. And
in a good way or a bad way?
It could be a good way or a bad way. And then you just, sometimes you like to journal it, or sometimes you, if it's something like not so beautiful or nice, like for those, and I haven't been tuning into, for example, the COVID or the virus that we're having in all the fair, but I have been tuning into the fair, but I haven't been tuning into that it would be a virus. But actually, just a few months ago, I was sitting with this friend, and we were talking about, what could happen, like, because I do my studies in crisis and catastrophic studies in the university, and we were talking, and then I said, are we really prepared? How well prepared are we if, like, a virus, if there would be like a biological weapon virus, something comes ahead? And that woman, she called me just a few days ago, and she said, Synnove, I remember we were talking about this last time you were, and that is 2 months ago. And we're just like, and at the moment, it felt so unreal, because we hadn't been talking about it at all here, at least here in Norway. We haven't been talking about the virus at all. And it was not a reality. It was a reality, like not a reality even, because it was so far from what everybody would expect. And so when we were talking about it, and I was like, and then I would tune into what is it, and then I would do some work to see how my society or how my area is prepared for this, to be shocked about my community not being prepared for this. And I even offered them to do some work with this, because I did feel that there was something going on still. You don't know what it is, but you
felt it without actually even doing an FLP.
Yes.
It was sort of like, it was
Yes.
like a random thought coming into
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, we need a plan for this. We need a crisis plan for this.
But
What
this was
if
because you were
biological-
studying this theme already in a university setting.
Yes, but we are not studying like these kinds. We are studying more like personal crisis or catastrophical crisis. If something happened with in the North Sea with some of our oil companies or something,
Okay.
big accidents, when we have the what is it? I don't know. Remember what it's called in English, when we have the snow, for example, coming down from the
Natural
mountains.
disasters.
Yes.
Yeah. Earthquakes.
Yes. And
climate change, whatever.
Yes. Yeah. And but for me, it was like, we don't have a good solution for example, a biological, and everybody was laughing at me, 2 months ago, saying, we will never experience what you are projecting at this moment. So, we're never going. So in some way I was like, okay, but I really think that we should have a plan for this. So I started myself checking out, do we have a plan for this in my community? And I asked also the woman that I was talking to check out her community, and neither of the communities actually did have like a good plan for this. But I also think, if you're used to often tuning in, then you can tune in
the most likely future, because of the current level of consciousness of what's going on, the different dynamics of the different countries, the economic structures, and all the agendas that are happening, beyond what we know. No, definitely.
So I think we
can do it.
Yes, I think we actually are, because it's like a training, because we're doing it in our meditations. And in a lot of the work that we're doing, we are tuning in. And even a lot of the meditations, or almost like every meditation, is about tuning in. It's about, maybe it's not about tuning into the future, but it's still tuning in. So we are learning and increasing our skills to tune in.
So what is it that we're tuning into? Are we tuning into potential, so timelines that are not set, or would you say, let's say there's just three scenarios. One is the best case, the other one is the worst case, and the other one is like the unknown? Or would you say no, infinite potential? You could like, let's say we could be picked up by the aliens. And another one could be, you know, we all evolve into like, I don't know, dinosaurs. Like, I don't know, our DNA just changes. We don't even need air. I don't know. Like, like if there are infinite potential, what are the limitations of potential, and how are we going to like, how can we influence that for the best of all involved?
Yeah, I think some of us, or if you could be conscious but not still, if you're not or I'm not saying that it is like this, but maybe if you're not doing the work, maybe then I would imagine that it would be easier, that we would be tuning in, or if you're not too conscious, it's easier for us to go in our program. So we would tune into the worst case scenario, because that is what we have been learning from our childhood.
And it's what common reality,
yes.
And what's common reality is telling us as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think, and so also it's for a lot of us, I think it's easier to actually tune into worst case scenarios, because we are in some way more trained in tuning into worst case scenarios.
And it's a lot of work to overcome the amygdala, the fight, flight, and fear response. You know, I mean, all of us doing the work, we still have to deal with like tuning in and out of these pendulums and collective mass consciousness affecting our sense of normality and safety. Not maybe sometimes not even for ourselves, but the people we love. You know.
Yeah. And I think that tuning into the best case scenario is, it's not that it could be, because I really think tuning into the best case scenario is work. It really is work, because the work is to also surrender in believing that it could actually happen. Because
but with our with our cooperation, we need to shape shift into that version of person. So there's a lot of habits and a lot of identities that we need to shift, probably.
Yeah. So you have to allow it also, because of the free will, because I also believe that we have a free will. So I think, and I have only had one person when doing facilitating an FLP, that felt that she somewhat had experienced through a lot of meditation work, and she said that maybe a third, if I should divide like a cake, a third she already knew. But even from there, she said, you know, whatever the rest, that I was able to tune her into her potential, still she was new for her, even though she had done a lot of meditational work. So, but most people, they have never been able to tap into their future, the best case scenarios in that way. So I think that's why I recommend, because I think, you know, even though we are tuning into the best, like into our potential, I think sometimes it's also nice to also, because you have a recording or you have the notes that it's actually happened, that it's not just ourselves, and you feel like you have more evidence of it actually being a reality.
So Ellen and I, we actually brainstormed with Synnove that, you know, Ellen and I would be happy to have a recording of us both as business partners doing a future life progression for our company. and we're going to record it. And we would love this to be a case study and to actually really see in, 1 year time, 3 years, 2 years time, 3 years time, what actually evolved and how it informed us. So that is one of the things that we want to take up on. And for Synnove, it was a new thing because she's never worked with 2 people before. And we're like, and Ellen and I like, we're so intuitive with each other anyways. It's like, I'm thinking something and she's already picking up on it. So we're like so working in unison anyway. So it would be really interesting to do it for our business as business partners. I have a question. So one question would be, how do we know that the best case scenario isn't coming from our, let's say, our ego versus it's coming from our, let's say, our highest self? I mean, would it even matter? I mean, because what I mean with ego is like somebody who who doesn't want to be confronted with, let's say, their blind spots, their dark side, maybe some of the things that they don't want to, they're in denial about, if you know what I mean. Whereas maybe somebody who is more in their higher self, they've evolved into a higher level of consciousness in terms of being more compassionate, being more of a leader, being more of a contributor rather than a taker. Do you understand what I mean? Like, we could definitely create mind movies of like, I'm driving this car and I have 10 women loving me, I'm like the biggest, baddest boy or woman in the world. I don't know what these people are thinking about. Like, sometimes I hear from even the Dr. Joe people that they're like, I had this mind movie all about myself, and then I realized that this was not really my mind movie. It was my ego mind movie. And I mean, I've been there right myself, because my anecdote is when I went to my first retreat, we were dimensionalizing things, and from the release technique, they taught us like, just to add a few zeros. And so Dr. Joe said, dimensionalize something really small that you don't care about. I said, well, £1 million is really small for me. And I just started dimensionalizing it. And lo and behold, what happened? This multi-millionaire guy came and sat next to me at the break, and he told me that during the meditation, he manifested $1 million commission for referring a deal. And I even knew which deal it was because he was talking to me about a specific supermarket chain being sold because he was the referral. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I helped somebody else create $1 million, but it wasn't me. And actually, I saw his mind movie because we became friends. And you know what? He was a multimillionaire even when he was a young kid, because he was listening to what gramophone player, because he was that old or that young, with Think and Grow Rich over and over again. And he basically came from a poor family, and his father said, I don't know whether you can make money or not, but he basically trained himself. He trained his subconscious mind, just like Bob Proctor, to believe in riches. And he became a multimillionaire when he was much younger. And I saw his mind movie, and you know what? This amazing meeting with this guy made me understand what being a multimillionaire was. He was vibrating being a multimillionaire. He was basically talking all about what he was creating for other people, how he was giving back. And when I looked at my mind movie, I was like, that's my ego mind movie. It has nothing to do with me being a millionaire, because I'm like, I'm a wannabe millionaire. I'm coming from lack millionaire. When I saw his mind movie, I started realizing, that's why he's a multimillionaire. It was like such an amazing synchronistic meeting. I think Source just sent him to me, like, if you want to be a multimillionaire, you need to meet this man, So maybe there's something, maybe you can give us an example or your thoughts about how do we know we're not tuning into the ego version of our best case scenario, or maybe actually the real one where we're actually fulfilling not our ego agenda, but we're contributing to a bigger plan where actually really everybody's benefiting. The whole is benefiting from what we're doing or who we are becoming.
I think, that's a good question. I think my experience is, as I've been telling that none of my clients that have been doing the FLPs and the regular FLPs, then I I do feel that they are more or less tuning into somewhat what you call the ego-ish potential, because it's different, and what it comes through is different sometimes. But when we're tuning into the best case scenarios, it's so beyond whatever people have been able to imagine before at all. So therefore I don't have anything that would tell me that we're tuning into an ego part of ourselves at all, because it's
even
beyond,
outside of what they can imagine or
yes,
what they deem is possible.
yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like the example, if I use the example with the beach body, I think some of the people will say, I want to do an FLP, and I want to see if I'm thin in 3 years time or whatever, for example. But it's an easy and then when they do that, of course they're tuning into more of the ego, what they want, and me, and I want this and I want that. But and then I think it's very different. And also for me, I haven't been having too many of those kinds. I only experienced that once, and then I just stopped the session, and I just, for me, it's also a matter of me telling, if we're aligned to do the work together. Because for me, it's about serving and actually tuning in, and I want the clients that are actually wanting to do the work to have whatever the future holds for them, that is the best potential or the best future, or that they need to go forward. So in my experience, I've had some of the, or I have not had, but I had some of the clients calling me that are more or less in victimizations, but I normally I have been able to screen them well enough in advance. So sometimes I will just tell a client, I'm sorry, I don't think I am the right facilitator for you, at least in this moment. And I would just take it on me, because it doesn't matter. I'd rather have clients that also I feel that I can tune in with, and so that we can co-create the amazing results. So also for me, it's like I won't say yes to any client, because I do want them to actually do the work. And if I don't feel that they will do the work, then I will turn them down as a client, actually.
And that's of course also based on your intuition.
Yeah.
Another question. So because we have a lot of business owners probably that are going to be listening to this call, and right now we know what's going on, or what was being told to us by the media, and what what we believe, what we're programmed to believe, I believe. How can we work with future life progression, and this quantum potential of the best case scenario right now? I mean, if what type of people would you say these people, if they come to me, maybe certain people that have lost jobs in a specific industry, maybe people that have to do face-to-face work, or we're thinking about people that are maybe people are struggling to keep maybe to actually supply goods or services. What would you say is the best thing to do? Would you say maybe have a these are the ideal people to do future life progression to see the best possible outcome? Or would you say actually, you know, they can actually just create whatever they want without even the future life progression. So what would you advise people who are listening to this? Because there is a reason why they're listening to this, and they're trying to make an assessment about what are their options, right?
Yeah, I think we all have the potential of tuning into the future and tuning into our best possible case scenario. But I also think for us to be able to do it, I think it's recommended that you do it with someone that can facilitate the process. And for me, I love the work, but if you are sitting there and listening to this and you're thinking, I don't know for sure or whatever, you know, I think if you're interested in the work, go seek the information, find the referrals and stuff at YouTube and see the referrals of what people have experienced with FLP, because then I think you can also do a research and you can even Google it, you know, the FLP and the area and stories of it, the area that you want to have a further look into. Mm-hmm. And regarding this situation that we have in the world today, I think, you know, some of us need, or really, it would be really helpful for us to do an FLP just to see how, because some of us are really, or a lot of people are really scared for their work, and already here in Norway, like we had just the last 3 days, we had 100,000 people getting their permit of leaving work. So people are really scared, and a lot of people would love to have some kind, that what they feel would be like an insurance for what the future holds, that they can come through this, mm-hmm. like a hope. And then I don't think it doesn't matter if it's hope or if it's reality or whatever it is. We always get what we need and what we need in that moment, and what we're able to actually take from that session or the process that we're given. And I see that a lot of the times when I facilitate the process, that even like I write like 5 pages down from a session, but it doesn't matter. But I try to write it all down, because I don't know what they exactly need from that session, but they will know when they see it after. So I think it's not up to me to judge or
the information that comes through.
Yeah, the information that comes through. I just want to do it to have it in some way, like a record of it, so that they can have it to go back and see, and they love it. And a lot of them, sometimes I get like pictures, they just take because I ask them to store the notes so they have it, and then sometimes they will go back, and sometimes I will ask them, you know, how are things, and then they will go back, and then they will just like check, you know, this happened, and what I think is amazing with the FLP is that when we do the future life progression, we get really clear on what the future holds. So even if it's self-projecting or like even self-fulfilling
prophecy,
prophecy, that we're actually going that way quicker, it doesn't matter, because in some way that is what the future holds. And I always tell, you know, some people ask me to do our next future life progression in the same area after a few months, and I normally say no to that, because I want the integration to be wrapped up, or to know that we are to know that the integration is finished.
And when you refer to integration, you're talking about the questions you're asking.
Yes.
What is the lesson? What do you need to learn?
Yeah.
How are you transforming?
Yes.
What are
Yes.
the things that you're doing differently?
Yes.
So that you can actually, allow in these changes in your business or your personal life or your leadership or whatever.
Yeah, because sometimes people say, I don't think this is working. I want to do another FLP, or I had amazing results. I want to do another FLP. But then I always ask them, did you do the step 1 where we got this question, what was it you, and I always ask them, what was you supposed to do?
Yeah.
And then they would ask, and I said, okay, did you do the work?
Yeah.
And also I think because it is a part of the evolving and integrational work that is needed to be done.
What is your opinion on doing the work? Because, Dr. Joe is very much a teacher that talks about, that we always have excuses that we don't have time to meditate.
Yeah.
And I definitely was one of these people, because we're so busy in the hard work pendulum, and I'm too busy, I don't have time pendulum, that we basically literally do not make the time. And then at one point when I started studying with, I heard Dr. Joe talk about it, and then I went to Bob Proctor, and Bob Proctor was all about wake up at 5 a.m. And then we started doing the wake up at 5 a.m. And then I started getting really excited about studying at 5 a.m. with the mastermind. And then when Dr. Joe came with actually wake up at 4 a.m., I was like, yeah, easy, and then of course I really enjoyed it. And you just sort of you start to get it into your routine. But definitely, would you say the integration is this is a continuous awareness of these are parts of my being that are in the way of my best case scenario future, because I don't believe in myself. I don't believe in the best case scenario. I actually believe all the doom and gloom. I don't, I think we're all gonna die anyways. I don't know, the virus is gonna get me. I have no clue, right? So in terms of the doing the work, when you say people have to integrate, they have to do the work, would you say day by day, moment by moment awareness, or maybe maybe doing the meditation or visualization or being in a mastermind? What would you say is the minimum amount? I would say minimum amount is moment to moment awareness.
Yeah.
That's quite very minimal, as 1 second minimum awareness.
Yeah. First of all, I think if you don't believe at all that it is possible and that there is a best case scenario for you out there, I think then you wouldn't be looking into this at all.
Yeah.
And then and if you're with this thing going on, we're all going to die, okay, then why are you here? Because I always believe, there is a reason why you are here. There is a reason why you chose to tune into this interview we're having and this talk. And of course there is a reason why, and I don't necessarily know why people are here, if it's just curiosity. But still, even if you're curious, there's something triggering, asking. So if you ask yourself, what is it? Why am I really here? Why am I what is it that I'm finding intriguing with this, for example? Or what is this conversation, or what Synnove is telling is irritating me, or I don't believe in? Because it all creates a way of us to become more aware of who we are and who we are becoming, and what life holds in some way.
Yeah.
So
can you maybe just share with us the biggest transformation that you've seen in one of your clients in terms of having done a future life progression with the best case scenario, and then basically them that vision or that little therapy session, I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe 2 to 3 hours, how did then shifted them because of that vision or that insight, or having seen that? Or is it more so that when people see it, they just forget all about it and then they stumble into it like, oh my gosh, this is happening? I mean, probably people are very different, but I'm very curious whether there are people that actually get such, what is it, a breakthrough during the session, that actually sort of like they're almost like they're saving money on future therapy or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. There was this client, and he um he wanted to tune into his business, and for me, I am not actually really sure why he wanted to tune in, but I guess there is always a reason why. But I didn't know what the reason why he wanted to tune in. I thought it would be like financial stuff or investing or investments, or like I didn't know. But for me, it doesn't matter why people want to tune in the area that they want to tune into. And when he was tuning in, he actually found that his business would not be operating just 3 years ahead. And we were digging into that, and just trying to find out how come. And what came through in that session was things that he said, this is not true, this is not possible, my partner is my best friend, blah blah blah, this is like whatever, like this whatever I'm like experiencing, it's not true, it's
I don't believe what I'm seeing.
I do not believe this. Like he was just like, I don't believe this. This I don't know what you like, what we've tapped in, but this is not true.
Mm-hmm.
And we just try to tune into what can he do, what is needed to be done, for example.
Yeah.
And he was quite upset about it. So he actually was so upset about the session that he didn't want to do an alternative reality. So sometimes you need to let people go. And we finished, we just wrapped up the session, and I was quite unsure of what was going on and what was happening, because he didn't want to tell. But what I know from after was that what he saw was that his partner was cheating on him
In the business.
And he couldn't believe it, because they knew each other from way back, and they had been like best friends, and like he could never believe that his partner would do that to him as they started the business together and stuff. But what happened was that he, even though he didn't like them, what he was experiencing, there was also something in some way. So for me, I just think he still got what he needed, because even though he didn't want to admit what he saw and that it could be true, it was so real what he was experiencing that he decided to do a little bit of background checking or what was going on. And what he found was that his business partner was even at that moment, taking out money from the company that eventually would have made him go broke. after all. So he just did some checkup and he found it, and he, of course, he ended the relationship of the partnership of the business and got out of it. So, and you know, sometimes for me, I don't know, because this was quite this was actually one of my first FLPs. But then, you know, I didn't meet him for quite a long time after, and it was just like an incident. We met in the street, and then he was like, "Oh, you know, I just want to tell you that this, you know, what happened in that session, you know, like," and then it was like more more or less like, you know, actually I should say thank you, and I didn't, because I was quite like he seemed really upset when we were doing the session, and he was upset, of course. And then he said, you know, what happened, I just couldn't see it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't believe that it could be happening to me. I couldn't believe it at all. And then I did some background. So he told me he did some background, and he found out that what he was seeing in the future life progression was actually going on already. And so then he could be thankful for still having the FLP after. Yeah.
No, that's a very good example. But this is about something that was already happening. Right now, it feels like I did a constellation, a collective wisdom constellation with a lot of the flamingos and the host of all the flamingo groups, the healing sessions and the meditations and things like that. We were with like 17 people on Sunday, and we actually what I found was that a lot of people, whatever they thought the future would hold, it's sort of like shattered. Like, it's like you have this mind movie, or you have a vision about where your business is going, and actually nobody believes in it anymore. Or everybody's like doubting, like, whoa, like actually I need to reinvent the ground that I believe my world was built on. So in this, let's say, blank slate type of arena, where people have to rethink everything that they thought would be possible for their business and their talents and their skills and their education and their, let's say, their list, right? Their list of contacts and their reputation, their brand, etc. What would you say, what is the type of advice you would give people who are considering FLP as a alternative therapy, to maybe investigate what type of options are out there for them? Because I mean, you're probably even also, you don't want to mislead people, right? And all of us are like, but would you say actually FLP is just going to give you this and it's not going to give you this? Or do you actually say FLP is going to solidify this and this for you? I mean, I have no clue, because it feels to me, you know, I've definitely experimented with psychics and astrologers, and I can tell you some things can completely make you crazy, and they become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I've decided for myself actually to walk away from these things where anybody would tell me what my future will hold, unless it's going to be the best case scenario. But because we are collectively now dealing with so much uncertainty, what can FLP do for business owners that are having to reinvent maybe their industry?
Yeah, I think what you're saying, you know, with the I think the thing with the FLP is that you're actually just tuning into the potential. Like, if you're tuning into the best case scenario potential in work or business wise area, you are where you are in this moment, and in this moment, you know, everybody has infinite amount of potential in them. So you tune into that, and it's not like I don't, like, for me, I don't go see psychics myself, because I'm probably a little bit like you. Like, I don't want to go to a psychic that is telling me, Synnove, this and this and this will happen in the future. Because if some of it happens, then I am sitting, or I'm left with the feeling that was this just self-prophecy, like self-fulfilling prophecy, or what is this? Like, was this really me? And I think that is the beauty of the FLP, because it's not me telling you what your future holds. It's you experiencing your future. It's not me telling you. I'm just asking questions, and you actually tell me in the experience, in the moment, what you are experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of me telling, are you seeing this? Are you seeing that? It's like stepping into the future, literally, and it's not me telling anyone what they are supposed to see or perceive or whatever it is. It's just me asking a bunch of questions, actually, and for me, I've never I always set the intention that we always do the work as easy and as easy as possible, and we both go out with the best outcome of the session that is possible in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never experienced people going out of a session not having anything at all. Like I told you with this client, like this guy, I thought that, oh my God, like, oh, because when he went out of that session and he was not so happy about the outcome of that session, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a failure. What is this? Oh my God, what is going? I was like, oh my God, what is this? Like, this is my one of my first clients. What will happen now?
Yeah.
But still, it's also about surrendering and leaning into the reality, and he really got what he needed for that.
Yeah.
In that moment, but that was not like a best case scenario. But I think, and I think quite a few of us, I think you don't even have to tune into the best case scenario to be able to find solutions and stuff, and advice, of what the future holds for you to bring back.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think a lot of us would benefit quite a lot of doing a best case scenario, because it's beyond our imagination, what we
It's
can
beyond
even
our
can.
paradigm.
Yes,
It's beyond our
so, yeah, because
what we accept as what is possible.
yes,
It expands the possible into the unknown of who we even think we are becoming, or what is going to happen to the world at large.
Yeah. So also we were talking about it earlier today, about doing an like when I do an FLP, and you and Ellen asked me, what about like do like 6 months ahead, and I said no, I never do 6 months ahead, because time when we do the FLP, we tend in some way, I can't explain it. It's like the time collapses, because you tend to go faster towards whatever you have been experiencing in the future, and it seems like the future is coming really fast towards you as well. So like 6 months it's nothing in an FLP, because I see people do like a 5-year and it happens within a month.
And when you said that, I was referring to some of the Dr. Joe testimonials on YouTube, and some of them are my friends, because it was a small community in the beginning. Now it's a huge community, but at the beginning students, who probably now have worked with Dr. Joe for like 10 years, their testimonies. One of them is a friend of mine, and I was saying that he has a testimonial of him doing a walking meditation where I was actually there with him and a few of our friends. And in that walking meditation, he felt his future wife. And he is one of those people who's been doing the work for years and years and years, basically worrying that he would ever meet his soulmate wife. And he was like, his biggest fear was that he was going to marry the wrong person or something. And actually what happened was that in the walking meditation, he surrendered so much. He felt the presence of this woman. He knew the color of her hair. And actually, a month later, he met her. And within a month, they started living together. Now they're happily married, have a beautiful son. And I know another friend of mine who actually also was single when he was doing, I think, a meditation. He tuned into a beautiful, beautiful future where he was holding his son, and then he was single, a son, or I think it was a son. And then very soon he met this woman, and they had a baby. And I think, but definitely, you know, so it's like, yes, I do believe there is this element of time collapsing when we start to, you know, but the thing is, the difference between, I think, the Dr. Joe people and maybe other people who are going to do an FLP is that Dr. Joe people believe we're choosing from different realities. We know that there's infinite possibilities. So we're reading, we see all the people, we see 400, 500 testimonies. We're like, oh, yeah, if this person can do it, I can do it. I definitely need to know how to do it. We become a little bit spiritually ambitious, I would say. But I think if a person is skeptical about infinite possibilities and they don't believe in parallel realities, they think that everything is linear. They believe in time. We don't even know what time is right now, right? Because there's a question about what is time. And because there's actually now research, you know, definitely in the book, The Field by Lee McTaggart, which was one of the most groundbreaking books about all the research on time and on the quantum field, etc. We now know that when we change the future, we change the past as well. So there's this really weird, like, the way that time works is we don't really understand it, right? No. But definitely, I think, you know, Ellen and I are looking forward to working with you. And we also negotiated a huge, beautiful deal for the people who are going to join us for our next game to do. Synnove will download a deal for you guys those of you who are going to play the game with us. And Synnove will be one of our players as well, because we really want the feedback of an experienced timeline worker to actually give us feedback on the way that we download the game, because we don't believe we designed the game. I was sat here yesterday on the couch with my boyfriend, and I can tell you, I was trying to figure out how to design the game, and I had a headache. I had so much headache. I was like, I need to go to sleep. I really cannot do it from my head. It has to come to me. So so I just wanted to ask Ellen, are there any insights or last questions you might have?
No, I'm excited to hear about the deal and to start playing with everyone who wants to come play. I feel like it was so inspiring. I'm so excited about FLPs now, especially choosing the alternative ones. Yeah, I really like it. Thank you.
Synnove, how can people find you? They can find you on your Facebook, on your LinkedIn profile, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is me me tuning into the future, because I was like, you know, the website stuff that is old-fashioned. But then I definitely learned that, okay, everybody's not living in the same reality as I am. So that is the reason why I actually didn't create the website, because I have been having people ask me, you know, you should really create the website at the moment, you know. And I was like, but I tuned into there was no website, you know, because I've been lucky, because all all the years that I have been working, I've been working as a self-employed. I've never used a website, never. I always had referrals from other clients, and
Well,
that
you
is how
created
I
not
have
needing a website, right?
survived my. So I, I actually haven't needed a website either.
It's very
So
bizarre.
it's
Yeah,
kind of weird, yeah.
yeah,
But I'm found in the both the LinkedIn and the Facebook,
yeah,
and it's just
yeah.
messaging me.
So we'll be looking forward to feature you as one of our, joint venture partners or affiliate partners. Because if you love the game, because what we're going to do at the appreciation game is actually we're going to tomorrow we're going to host a 2 p.m. CET time interactive workshop where we're going to go through all the steps of identity and then our personality and all the different layers where we actually intervene with the appreciation game with the alignment skills, but also definitely the new teachings that we bring in about the divine matrix, parallel realities, intuition, and pendulums, because pendulums are really what is programming us into what we believe is so-called reality and what is possible for people. I think it would be, so I think for you, it will be very interesting for you to see how we see integration, because we see integration as staying in heart and brain coherence, breaking the habits of identity, believing we're human, believing that we're linear beings, believing that we are controlled by the environment. Definitely another layer that we're trying to break in terms of identity is going from victim to creatorship. Because a lot of people, whenever we are being defined by the environment, we're in victim consciousness, and we have to really step into the oneness paradigm, which is you're creating everything. And one person in alignment is more powerful than a million that are not. And we have to prove that to ourselves. And then all the different layers, from the personality, which is how we think, how we act, and how we feel. And so so it's we're very grateful that you're going to be playing with us, so that you can actually see how we have experienced the acceleration of what we call the work, because we have committed clients that are super they're ready to not just know, they're ready to do it, and they're ready to be it, and they're ready to be challenged in their limitations and what they believe is, no, I'm stuck here. And just because they play the game with us, they basically start to see super acceleration of their knowledge, but also how they have to stop their procrastination and actually stepping up and just aligning in the now, not just say, oh, today I don't have time, today I'm too worried, today I'm too much in fear. They just have to say, you know what, the crisis is hitting me right now. Now is the time. Now is the time for me to step up. Now is the time for me to do everything that I've been studying, going to the retreats for years. I was dancing at the retreat. What about now that there's a crisis? I better dance now, So yeah.
And I am really looking forward to have fun and do the game with you and have the experience of the game. And I really do believe in the game, also because of the appreciation, also with because for me, I feel that there is some of the like releasing where you have you don't have where you're getting the non-attachment stuff with it. So, and I think what a lot of people is maybe struggling with when they are, because there is a lot of manifestors out there, but they are struggling with the non-attachment part of the manifestation work. So, and for me, I just, when listening to you talking about the appreciation game, for me it was like I was just listening, I was just in my ears, I was just hearing that then you will have the non-attachment, or you will be stronger in the non-attachment
It's also, appreciation is not just the best possible outcome. Appreciation is also the path to the best possible outcome, but it's also appreciating the destruction, the so-called destruction, the so-called letting go, the so-called chaos. And even in that contrast, appreciating that you can still be powerful, you can still align. And, you know, and of course, you know, we know that after chaos comes order. But the order is matching up with our level of consciousness and what we believe is possible. So, so this is why I think it's, you know, like, you probably Gary V, you know Gary V. Gary V is always bitching about people. And I love how he bitches because I think he's so like matter of fact, alpha male, taking action responsibility type of archetype. And he's saying, yeah, all of you telling me that you had the idea for Uber, but why didn't you put the work in to create that Uber? Why didn't you get the funding for Uber, right? And I think this is so amazing. Like, yes, all of us are tuning into the same potential, but not a lot of us are willing to do the work. And I think, so this is really about, you know, people have to match up their desires with who they are and not come from, I'm going to be that person when I get the results. No, you have to become that person while you're striving towards that result. This is why our game is called creating from the best case scenario and not, you know, creating best case scenario. You have to create from the best case scenario, which is a Neville Goddard reference. If people know Neville Goddard, he's very much living, he really much teaches living from the end result, which is the person you are when you are living that reality. You have to become that person in the present moment. So yeah. Anyways, if you guys want to reach out for Synnove, you cannot find her website, please reach out to us. We'll be sure to put a link of her Facebook or her LinkedIn on the YouTube recording. You will receive it as well. And if you're signed up on our mailing list, you will also receive an invitation for the live interactive workshop happening tomorrow at 2 p.m. CET. It's just an outline of how we are going to, what we're going to be teaching in the next game, but also how it contrasts with the book club. So the appreciation game is the #1 law of attraction community for accountability and for acceleration of your knowledge and the tools that you can learn from different teachers for you to actually become a vibrational match. And the book club is just amazing content where we actually really read a book, not just like a consumer. We actually study the contents of the book and we refer to the alignment skills that we actually downloaded as well, and which we teach in the appreciation game. So hopefully we can see you there tomorrow. We're all in quarantine, so we shouldn't have any complaints about time. Maybe collectively we created this, I don't have a clue. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you there. And thank you for being so patient with us. We always try to keep these things under an hour. It never ever works. Sorry, Ellen. It's been 2 hours again of us talking. So it's time to go to bed and time to meditate and create our future. And yeah, so thank you so much, Synnove, and all the beautiful flamingos and friends who are here. And I look forward to seeing you on the game if you're not there, maybe seeing you at the book club or another one of our amazing webinars. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Synnove.
Lots of love. Bye-bye. Bye.